Walker Buehler is a big addition to the Boston Red Sox starting rotation, and adding him makes the rotation a lot better for 2025 than it was in 2024.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, all of it is completely free. So you might as well start your day with the best Red Sox daily podcast there is, because we have you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Hello, Merry Christmas Eve. I cannot believe that Christmas and the end of the year are here. This year just completely flew by, and the end of the year snuck up on me. And I was actually having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and we were saying that because Thanksgiving was a week later this year, it snuck up on us completely, the Christmas season, and all of a sudden it's mid-December and I still have to do all this Christmas shopping. So hopefully you are wrapped and ready to go. I actually had a busy night last night because I was trying to watch both the Bruins and Celtics games while also wrap gifts at the same time. So lots going on, but here we are. And the Red Sox certainly stayed busy yesterday too, as they agreed to a deal with pitcher Walker Buehler. So I'm going to be touching on that on today's show, as well as touching on another signing that the Red Sox made this past week, and also talk about what's next for the Red Sox, what's left for them to do for this offseason, where do the holes still lie. So that's all on today's show. But when the news first broke that the Red Sox were signing Walker Buehler, I was excited. They agreed to a 1-year deal worth $21.05 million. So essentially, this deal basically is the qualifying offer, because that was the exact qualifying offer from the Dodgers that they decided not to extend to him. And with the qualifying offer, teams can choose to give it to a player or not. And then if they choose to, the player can decline it if they want to go to free agency, or they just take it and then they pitch for a year with that team. So the Dodgers decided not to exercise that option with Buehler, so he became a free agent. So the Red Sox essentially agreed to a deal with him for what that same amount would have been for the qualifying offer. So the last thing we remember Walker Buehler by was him closing out the 2024 World Series with an absolutely nasty 9th inning at Yankee Stadium, in which he had to come in a situation where the Dodgers had a 1-run lead in Game 5, and he came on in the top of the 9th and just mowed over all 3 batters he faced with a nasty pitch to strike out Alex Verdugo to cap it off. So that just makes it even funnier that he made the last out of the World Series and Alex Verdugo happened to be the hitter, and now he is coming to pitch in Boston. The regular season was tough for him, despite the fact that he was able to step it up during the playoffs. After he missed nearly 2 years due to his second Tommy John surgery in August 2021, he struggled to look like the pre-injury version of himself for most of 2024. In 75 and a third innings, he had a career worst 5.38 ERA, 4.68 expected ERA, 18.6% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate, and 1.91 home runs per 9 rate. While his fastball velocity returned to his 2021 to 22 level, the lack of swing and miss and chases was pretty apparent for him. But what he did in October gives the Red Sox confidence that there's still a solid starting pitcher there with him, because in the postseason, like I talked about his nasty performance in that closing game of the series, he posted a 3.60 ERA in the postseason in general this past year and struck out 13 batters in 4 outings. He threw 15 innings in those, including a fantastic Game 3 outing in which he gave up no runs and 5 strikeouts over 5 innings. And then 2 days later was when he finished off the Yankees to give the Dodgers that World Series title. So a healthy and productive Buehler, like that version of him that we saw in the playoffs, would give the Red Sox a really nice addition to a rotation that has a very high ceiling for 2025. So here's the thing is, while we know that Buehler has that potential and we've seen what he can do when he's at his best, we don't know whether he's going to give that to us or not. We don't want the version of Walker Buehler that struggled during the regular season with the Dodgers. We want the guy who was able to click again in the postseason to carry over into this upcoming year. But essentially, it is a low-risk, high-reward signing for the Red Sox because this is a prove-it year for Buehler. If he goes out there and he pitches really well for the Red Sox, then they could try to extend him for another 2 or 3 years before he hits free agency, and they can keep him in the rotation. If he doesn't pitch well, then they go and they let him walk again in free agency at the end of 2025. Now, the thing about these 1-year deals, because I have seen some people on Twitter say they should have given him more than a 1-year deal. I do disagree with that because it's a little bit risky going more than 1 year for a pitcher that you don't know what he's going to have. If he goes out there and he doesn't pitch well at all in that first year and you're kind of stuck with him for another 2 or 3 years, that's kind of tough for the Red Sox because it prevents them from adding another starter who could be better in the rotation. Whereas if he pitches well, then they have the opportunity to be able to extend him, but at least they're given that chance and they're able to see how he pitches first before they commit to that. So I'm actually very happy with the 1-year deal. And on top of that, 1-year deals tend to be good for pitchers because it forces them to have a good season since they know they're going to be hitting free agency again. So they don't really have a choice but to have a good year. So that's why for somebody like Buehler, him being in the situation in which he really has to prove himself in 2025 could be really beneficial for the Boston Red Sox. So now when you're looking at a Red Sox rotation that has Walker Buehler in it, you're looking at Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Brian Bello, and Lucas Giolito most likely as that starting 5. And the reason I'm putting Tanner Houck above him and Brian Bello below him in the rotation is because Houck solidified himself last year as the most consistent starter and most reliable starter in the Red Sox rotation. He had some struggles in the second half of the year, but I feel like that's because he was being stretched out a little bit more than he was used to and throwing more innings than he had in years past. So his arm was starting to wear out because of that. But he was pitching to a Cy Young caliber level in the first half of the season. And when you looked at the Red Sox rotation from this past year, he was the player that we knew we could trust to throw out there in a playoff game. But when it comes to this rotation now and you add Walker Buehler to the mix, I don't put him above Houck because of the question marks with him, with his health and what he's going to look like and which version of him we're going to get. So I have to put him below Houck. But with Bello, I definitely need to see more consistency before I can feel confident making him the number 3. But this is really good for Bello because this takes so much pressure off of him and people won't really expect him to have to be more than a number 4 unless Buehler completely stinks when he's out there, which I don't think is going to happen. So then you have Bello as the number 4, and that's the expectation for him. Then it takes a lot of pressure off Lucas Giolito, another guy who we don't know what he's going to have going into 2025. Is he going to show some semblance of the dominant pitcher we saw prior to his injuries and dealing with not being able to stay healthy and surgery and all that? Or are we going to see a version of Giolito that is rusty that you can tell has been removed from the game for a while? So if he only is expected to be the number 5 starter who's going out there and eating innings and pitching to a decent caliber, then that's all the Red Sox will really need from him. So by adding another starter besides Garrett Crochet, this helps with that whole transition of the rotation of taking some pressure off of the other guys that are pitching in the back of the rotation. Now, then you have Cutter Crawford and what happens with him. Now, I did see somebody say that they think Crawford could get traded now for a bat. I'm not seeing that because it's never a bad thing to have starting pitching depth. And the Red Sox have a good amount of starting pitching depth now between guys like Crawford, Richard Fitz, Quinn Preister, who the Red Sox picked up at the trade deadline this past year, who could get a chance to start in the majors at some point in 2025. So they have a few guys who they could rotate in there if need be. So from a depth standpoint, you always want to have those guys, especially a guy who is used to starting in the majors, like Cutter Crawford, who has that experience. So if somebody gets injured, they're not trying to experiment with throwing somebody out there. They can just pull Cutter Crawford and say, hey, you're going to pitch every 5 days until he's healthy again. So if they keep him up in the majors and maybe they have him pitch out of the bullpen, then he'd be available to come in and start if need be, if somebody does get injured. So I'm not thinking they're going to move around any starting pitchers. I think they would keep everybody that they have because they do want the depth, and it's important to have that depth because of the inevitability of the fact that injuries do happen in the game of baseball. So you want to be prepared for that. And also bringing in a guy like Walker Buehler signals to me that the Red Sox are done with their rotation now. I don't think they're going to pursue any other arms to solidify their rotation because I think they feel pretty confident in what they have now. They would not have traded for Garrett Crochet had they not seen ace caliber potential in him. So I think they feel like he is their ace of the future with a lot of guys around him that can have big seasons for the Red Sox. So if Walker Buehler has a big season in 2025, we're looking at a really competitive Red Sox rotation that's arguably one of the best in baseball. But keep in mind, I keep saying if, because there are still question marks there in the rotation, which the Red Sox do seem to love to do, is have a rotation full of question marks. So the question marks have to be positives for this team, and the potential and ceiling for the Red Sox rotation right now, based on everything that we've seen from these guys over the last year, that's grounds for a potentially very strong starting rotation. So it's really important for Buehler to be able to get into this rotation and pitch consistently and generate more of those swings and misses, because that's what he was lacking for a lot of the regular season in 2024, and guys were getting on base off of him a lot. So if he can get back to form prior to Tommy John and be able to dominate the way that we saw him dominate in October, then I'm very happy with this Red Sox rotation. And I like the fact that they continue to try to add pieces and do what they can to make themselves a contender. And it's clear that John Henry doesn't want to hand out long-term contracts to pitchers. So instead, Craig Breslow is making it work and going and acquiring guys to add to this staff without feeling like the Red Sox are missing out because they're not offering a guy a huge contract. So I really like the moves they've made so far. And they're also adding even more depth in the second half of season with another pitcher who they brought in over the last few days. So coming up, I'm going to be discussing that and how he can contribute to this Red Sox team. If you love going to live events, whether that's a sporting event, comedy show, concert, play, or musical, you name it, GameTime has you covered for all of those events. And the best thing about GameTime is it's always cheaper than other ticketing vendors, literally every single time. I've never had one time where I bought tickets for an event and GameTime was more expensive than anything else. It's always the cheapest, and I highly recommend using it for any of your ticketing needs because it'll show you your view from your seat so you can make sure that you're not purchasing a bad seat with an obstructed view. So 100% highly recommend using it. GameTime is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? GameTime. You will not be disappointed if you use GameTime. I literally use it for every ticketing need that I have now, because it's so much better than other ticketing vendors. And especially if you have a big family and you're looking to bring everybody to a game or something, you want something that's affordable, and GameTime will assure you that what you're getting is affordable. The Red Sox have made some moves to improve their pitching staff this offseason, most recently bringing in Walker Buehler to boost the rotation. And the Red Sox are looking at really good rotation depth now, and I'm inclined to believe they're done addressing the rotation for this offseason. But there are other moves that still need to be made, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on today's show. But the Red Sox did make another move to sign Patrick Sandoval, a left-handed pitcher, to a 2-year contract. So they officially announced this signing on Monday, but it came out a few days ago that they were signing him. He's 28 years old and made 16 starts for the Angels in 2024 before undergoing Tommy John surgery. In 107 career major league outings, 100 of those being starts, he has posted a 4.01 ERA, giving up 239 earned runs for 536.0 innings pitched, with 529 strikeouts. From 2021 to 2023, he recorded a 3.53 ERA in 72 outings, with 69 of those being starts. Among the 106 pitchers who have thrown at least 300 outings since the start of the 2022 season, he ranks 5th in home runs allowed per 9 innings, with 0.68, having surrendered only 28 home runs in 373 innings during that time, which is promising given the fact that the Red Sox did have a couple starters in 2024 who had problems with the long ball and were giving up home runs a lot. But he doesn't tend to really give up a lot of them, which is something that could be really useful for the Red Sox. He was selected by the Houston Astros in the 11th round of the 2015 first-year player draft. He was born in Mission Viejo, California, represented Team Mexico in the 2023 World Baseball Classic, and was named to the All-WBC team after going 1-0 with a 1.23 ERA in 2 starts. So he definitely has potential. The thing with Sandoval that I'm worried about, again, is his health. He isn't going to be ready until at least the second half of the season, maybe even a little later than that. But since it's a 2-year deal, to me, the Red Sox see some upside with him, that if he's healthy, he can contribute. So this clearly is a move that they feel will benefit them more in 2026 than in 2025, because of the fact that he's not really going to get to pitch a lot in 2025. But when we talk about the Red Sox starting pitching depth, he's another guy who in the second half of the season, if he's healthy, could come in and help bolster that rotation, or maybe they could bring him in and he starts in the bullpen just to make sure that he eases back into it. If they already have the starting pitching options and they don't really need him to start, they could use him in the pen, and it would allow for that flexibility for the Red Sox to be able to have him ease back into it. He does have good stuff when healthy, good command. Just the only problem is that we don't really know what he's going to be because of the fact that he had been hurt. The Red Sox deal is $18.25 million over the 2 years. So I'd be curious to know how much they end up feeling like that's worth it. And is he going to make the Red Sox money worth its while by bringing him in? When he's on point, he racks up strikeouts with his really good secondary pitches, which are his changeup and slider. Both are pitches that he's mastered, that he uses very well. When he does return to a mound, he's still young enough that he can be a useful member of the Red Sox rotation with the upside for more. And with Andrew Bailey being here, who is really honing in on these pitchers, utilizing their off-speed pitches a lot more. If he gets into Andrew Bailey's pitching lab, he's somebody who could use that to his advantage with that changeup and slider and be able to work with Bailey to perfect those pitches even more to generate more swings and misses. And Craig Breslow has talked about how his goal for this offseason with the pitching was to find swing and miss guys. And this is a big swing and miss guy that, once he's healthy, could be a great addition for the Red Sox. Obviously, it's hard to really know timeline-wise when he's going to be healthy. If he is, you don't know if that timeline is going to be pushed back for when he's able to come back and be able to fully contribute. But I like the idea of him because I think from a raw stuff standpoint and the fact that he's able to get guys to chase is going to be really beneficial for the Red Sox moving forward. So the Red Sox did have to make room on the 40-man roster for him when they did acquire him. So they made another trade, what do you know, with the Chicago White Sox. They bolstered their bullpen as they acquired reliever Cam Booser from the Red Sox. So the Red Sox moved Cam Booser in order to make room on the 40-man roster for Sandoval. And when the Red Sox did trade Cam Booser, they in exchange got a minor league pitcher in Yoiker Fajardo. So Cam Booser in 2024, in the first half of the season, was arguably their best reliever, was on point, was really reliable, and you kind of knew what you were getting from him. But then in the second half, that started to change a little bit because he, as well as several other relievers, were overworked because the starters could not pitch deep into games. So because we weren't getting the innings from the starters, the relievers had to pull more weight, and Booser was one of the guys that Cora kept running out there because he didn't have a lot of options. So Booser struggled a little bit more in the second half. So the Red Sox obviously didn't think he was a pitcher who was going to be part of the future to be able to contribute. So they traded him and got a solid minor leaguer in return. Booser ended up going 2 for 3 with a 3.38 ERA this past year, recording 1 save and 43 strikeouts in 43 relief appearances, and that was his first season in the majors. 32-year-old left-hander who also received the Tony Canigliaro Award last season for overcoming alcohol abuse, injuries, and a bicycling accident. So he's a great role model for perseverance and overcoming obstacles and changing your life for the better and continuing to pursue what you love. So the White Sox are definitely getting a guy with a really good attitude. He made his major league debut on April 19th at Pittsburgh at age 31 years and 351 days, becoming the oldest Red Sox player to debut since Tommy Fine in 1947. He also was the recipient of the Red Sox organization's Lou Gorman Award, given annually to a minor league player who has demonstrated dedication and perseverance in overcoming obstacles while working his way to the big league club. So he definitely has the work ethic to be able to succeed. There just wasn't a lot of room for him anymore with this Red Sox team and its bullpen continuing to improve. Now, Fajardo, the minor league prospect that the Red Sox got, is only 18 years old and was originally signed by the White Sox as an international free agent in February. He went 1-4 with a 3.91 ERA and 64 strikeouts over 13 starts with the Dominican Summer League White Sox last season. The right-hander issued only 8 walks and allowed 2 home runs. So this guy has a 30% strikeout rate, and he's only 18 years old. So this is a guy who would be great for the Red Sox to develop in their system, be able to have him elevate and work his way up to eventually hopefully be able to contribute in the majors. Now, obviously, it's so hard to know because when a guy is young like that, you don't really know how he's going to pan out or if he's going to pan out in the majors, but you do what you can to see the upside with the player and hope that you can hone in on his craft so that he can eventually work his way up to being a special player on this Red Sox team. Now, with them wanting to trade Cam Booser, the return was never going to be anything crazy, but they got a young, talented pitcher who will take a while to work his way through the system, but that's okay because the Red Sox really have an opportunity here to be able to work with this guy and develop him truly internally so that he can hopefully come up to the majors eventually and be a contribution. So obviously, with the Cam Booser situation, I'm not really that surprised that he was the one they decided to let go of. But once they needed to clear a roster spot, I knew there was going to be another move that happens. And this move works out for the White Sox, too, because they get a guy that can help out in their bullpen that even though he didn't have the best season with the Red Sox, it was his first year in the majors. So now that he's acclimated to that, he with the White Sox will hopefully be able to give himself a better season out of the pen and be able to figure out what works for him and what doesn't. And hopefully he's got a little bit more familiarity with that. But all of that happened in order to make room on the Red Sox roster for Sandoval, another guy who is a question mark because of his injury history, but the Red Sox seem very much okay with taking chances on guys like that because they know that if they take a chance on a guy like that, it could be a really high reward for them at the end. But if they take a chance on a guy like that and he doesn't pitch well, obviously that's tough, but it's not a really expensive deal, so that if he isn't pitching well, and then in year 2, if he steps it up, they have the opportunity to keep him again, or they let him go to free agency at that point. So to me, that's probably why Henry doesn't want to commit to signing pitchers to these crazy long-term deals, because he feels like there could be issues down the road with injury and everything. So he's a guy who has a lot of upside and can pitch in the second half of the season, hopefully. And if he is able to come back in the second half of the season, has a lot of potential to really contribute for this Red Sox team. And coming up, who else can contribute to this Red Sox team? Hopefully another player or two that the Red Sox acquire. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about that. What's next for the Red Sox offseason? The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Just don't forget us little people when you're going on FanDuel and you're cashing in all these bets and making a ton of money because your bets are hitting, because FanDuel helps you make the bets that are logical and make a lot of sense. So I promise you, if you start using it, you'll probably get addicted. So don't say I didn't warn you there. But if you're looking for a fun sports betting site, FanDuel 100% is the home for you. What's left for the Boston Red Sox this offseason? They seem to have shaped out their rotation now with the addition of Walker Buehler and also adding Sandoval, who likely will pitch in the second half of the season, which, by the way, when I first saw the notification that Patrick Sandoval was coming to Boston, I literally read it as Pablo Sandoval at first, and I was like, there is no way we're doing this again. I was like, this is just not happening. So then I had to double check and read it again. And then I realized, okay, we're good. We're not doing this repeat thing again with Pablo Sandoval. So Patrick Sandoval, the pitcher, who is coming to Boston and has upside with good stuff if he's healthy. But that's the question, is if healthy, the Red Sox do remain with a lot of question marks in regards to their pitching staff and the health of these guys. But if they stay healthy and they're able to have their guys throw a lot of innings, this pitching rotation will be very good. So considering all of this, what is left when it comes to the Red Sox offseason, and what other moves should they be making? The logical move to make now would be to sign Alex Bregman, a right-handed bat who has very solid numbers at Fenway and is flexible in terms of the position he can play. It's already come out that he would be the Red Sox primary second baseman if he were to come here, and then he could platoon at third base with Devers sometimes if need be. Like if Devers has the day off or he's DHing or something, then they could stick Bregman at third, but he's capable of playing second base and maybe occasionally some shortstop if need be there too. But that would be the plan for him, is if he comes to Boston, he would be the primary second baseman. And this makes sense for several reasons. I've talked about him on the show before, but just to refresh your memory, one, because he's a veteran who knows how to win. The Astros have been there, done that. And having a guy who is a good veteran presence in the locker room could be very good to have around some of these younger players who don't have that experience to playing postseason baseball, and they don't really know what that pressure is like. Another reason is because of the fact that he has a good relationship with Alex Cora, because they spent their time in Houston together, and he would feel comfortable playing for the Red Sox manager who knows a lot of his strengths. Also, because of that versatility, being able to play multiple positions in the infield, so the Red Sox could lean on him for that. Or if there's an injury, rather than trying to take a chance on calling up somebody from the minors who might not be ready yet, they have a guy who can switch over to a different position, which they kind of did with Rafaela last year, played him both in center field and at shortstop, depending on what's needed. And that type of player can be really beneficial for a team like the Red Sox. Also, his bat. They need to add a big right-handed bat to the lineup, and he would absolutely boost the Red Sox lineup and make them look a lot more competitive. He's a guy who can hit the ball out of the park at Fenway, but can also hit to all parts of the ballpark. And it was always really frustrating when Bregman was with the Astros and was just hitting the ball all over the place at Fenway Park, because his bat is really comfortable with Fenway, and it's a place that he can absolutely thrive with the bat. So that's another reason why it makes sense for the Red Sox to bring him in, because then the lineup is looking a lot better. And I know that the interest level is there, but the problem is the front office had some disagreements on whether they should bring in Bregman or not. So it's just a matter of, have they worked through those things, or are they still having reservations in terms of signing him? Because it sounded like Sam Kennedy and Alex Cora wanted Bregman, but Craig Breslow and several others in the front office didn't. So that obviously is something that needs to be worked out, but they do need to add another big bat. And I'd also love to see them acquire a solid high leverage bullpen arm, because if you think about the pen right now, yes, they have some guys and the pen's going to be better than it was in 2024, but getting another established guy who can be a shutdown guy would be fantastic for the Red Sox bullpen moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't add anybody else to the pen, but I'd love to see them add one more reliable reliever on top of that right-handed power bat. Then I would be able to call it a day on the offseason and feel very satisfied with it. The Red Sox know they still have areas of need. They still intend to address those areas, but we're already looking at a better team than they had in 2024. And that's promising, because they did say this offseason would be a big one. They want to go back to their winning ways. Obviously, this shows that they're trying to do that. So hopefully they start to make some more moves soon. But I am eyeing Alex Bregman as the next priority for the Red Sox. Adding him to the lineup would just absolutely booster it for the Red Sox and give them flexibility in terms of where he plays, because he's flexible and willing to play in a variety of different capacities. So that would be great for the Red Sox to be able to have that option and utilize him where needed. I'm getting more and more excited for the Red Sox season in 2025, though. I think we're going to see a lot better of a team than we saw in these last few years, and there's going to be a lot less frustration. But I do appreciate you tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. For your next listen, tune into Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date in all things going on across the league. So if you want to know what's going on with all the other major league teams, make sure you check out his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You will not be disappointed. I promise. His show is so much fun. And like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.